Oh boy. Ooh, excuse me. Again, shalom, 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 everyone. I want to welcome everyone to King James Bible University. I'm Elder Michael Johnson, and we with Precept Mastery. We are going to be going through and picking up in Romans. So I'm just getting a couple of things set up as we get ready to start here. And I just want to make sure a couple of things is sure. And also, they asked me to make an announcement. I didn't know they had done this until actually today. So also, if you want to, I know people keep asking about the clothing and different stuff to where they can pick it up. What ended up happening, I know we moved a lot of stuff. Well, I know you can still sit over there, but a lot of stuff is actually over in the Moab. But however, what ended up happening, they ended up striking a deal with Teespring, which Teespring is actually over here. And actually now you can actually buy a lot of the stuff, the clothing and stuff here if you want. You should see it. I believe it's at the bottom, but I just found out about it today. However, they said it'd been up there for a while. I didn't pay no attention to it. But if you want to get, I know King James Bible University t-shirts and what else they have other stuff there, and also Precept Mastery stuff. But they do have that stuff over, actually it's below there where you can see it. So I have to go, I actually have to go through it to actually see, but I technically really don't know because I kind of found out at the last minute that they actually did it. So, however, what we're going to do, we're going to be picking up and we're going to be going through Romans. We got to pick this up at verse 21. Well, we finished with verse 21, but we're actually going to be going through verse 22 and going from there. So what I want to make sure is a couple of things is that everyone who actually already has joined this and the ones who have their books, I want to make sure you have your books, your pencils, your paper, and all your notes and everything ready, because some of the stuff we're going to be going through is really, really important. And it's some things that we're going to pull in here that's we really need to make sure those precepts are put there. And then we have some affiliations that's going to go in there. So I need to, excuse me for one hot second here. Yeah, sorry about that. I had to blow my nose, but I don't know, people don't need to be seeing that kind of crap, but I had to blow my nose real quick. So what I want to make sure is everybody who's in here, I want to make sure that you guys understand what's going on. And everybody, it's a lot of people who ordered even the precept version as far as the PDF one. Those you can actually print out. So you can print those out and then you can work it as you go with that. So I know a lot of people, they said, been picking up those PDF ones, ordering them on Lulu.com. So if you get those, you can print those out. And then you can also, if you're giving classes and then you done did all your doodling on here, and then you might want to teach a class and then you print those out and give them to your students. And then you can actually teach them what they need to know. So those the purpose of that. But then we have a lot of people who actually want to go through this, understand it. And that booklet has the entire thing of Romans in there. And we're going to be pulling, I'm talking about precepts and affiliations to where you'll be going through it. Then we're going to be going through the Precept Mastery paper. We're going to show how that completely outlines how everything connects, which is very interesting. So what I want to do, I want to make sure before we get started, I want to make sure that everybody, let me see real quick. I want to make sure that everybody is on board. I have the YouTube up just for questions, just in case, as well as I always have this in the back with the participants. But if you want to actually even be able to speak live, it's easier to come to the back to where I can actually pull you up live to where you can actually speak and you can ask questions besides typing them in. However, some people feel uncomfortable and some people still sit back there and still type their question in, just to let you know. And then what I do, I read the question and then I answer it out loud. or you can sit over here on this other side on YouTube, which is a delay. That's why sometimes you'll see me, I look over there to see how it's going, and it's a delay because I have to wait to see what's going on. So what I want to do is I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to welcome everybody here. But what we do here, we put in work. We have to put in work because we need to find out what is required of us and what in the world is Paul talking about. So we have to find out from one of our brothers what he's talking about. We got to get in here, got to put in this work. And what we do here, we do precepts. We don't have time to sit there to talk about a whole bunch of foolishness, about other stuff going around the world. We have to sit there and worry about what's going on in this book. So with that, we have to put some work in. So with that, we're going to get ready. We're going to start cranking up, and we're going to start picking this up, and we're going to, let me pull this up. Yeah. Right there, we have this right here where we can see. I want to make sure that everything is there before I switch over. I need to make sure that the switch is happening, and I do see the switches happen. So my thing is here is where, this is where we left off at. Now you'll see sometimes I'm putting the yellow highlighter through there. So if you have a yellow highlighter, highlight those things, because then it'll show you what actually is being honed in on. But on that workbook that you have, you can write on it, you can doodle on it. It's whatever you want to do with it. But you know, some people are going to take this and going to transfer some of the precepts to their Bible. Some people are going to do it in many different ways. However, we're going to go through this and we got to find out what's going on. So if I see I'm getting myself in the way, in which I don't too much like seeing my mug on there. So sometimes I might blank it out, because we got a new kind of thing that we're doing something, and I can see my mug right here in front, and I do not need to be seeing my mug. However, we're going to pick this up at verse 22, and we got to look at it. I need to make sure that I have my Bible. I make sure you guys have yours, so I need to make sure I have mine. So we got to go to Romans, and we got to go to chapter 1, and we picking this up at verse 22. So, and if I can beg you guys one more time, I need to just blank myself out for a hot second, because something has went out and I need to make sure that this is ready. And I am ready to go. I needed to make sure something was going right there. And we are set. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay. So now we're looking at this, and what I want to do, we want to look at this. We gotta pour through this, and we're going to look at a couple of things to where we got a couple of verses we have to push through, and we're going to have to get these together. And no matter what, we just got to push through it. So what we're going to do, we're looking at verse 22, and we're going to see something that's going on here. We're going to see something that's going on here, because we got to come back up to this one. I believe I spoke on that the last time. We got to come back to verse 21, but we want to see something. It says, professing them to be wise, they became fools. Professing them to be wise, they became fools. And as I said, I can't take my mug too much longer. So let me take my mug out of the question, and then I just talk, because when I look, I can see my mug, and it's kind of irritating. So what I'm doing here, we're just going to do this, and then I click back in. However, we're looking at this here, and they professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. So we need to understand what some of these words are. We need to understand what it means, not what the dictionary or what today's dictionary say. We need to understand what do the Bible and what do it mean back there, so we can get the understanding on what's going on. So what we're going to do, we're going to highlight some things as we normally do. We're going to take that highlighter, and we're going to do professing. We need to know what professing means. So let's put professing in there to understand what professing means. We need to understand what that means. We need to understand what that means. So what do that mean? In a couple of them, I'm gonna speak about it, and then later I do ask class to help me understand and make sure all of us is on the same page. So professing, what we need to put this in there because it's going to actually help you out a lot later. Now it's openly declaring, did some acknowledging this might be too much to have of God. Why? But are fools. Why? Why is this put in there that way? We're going to find out something that's going to actually shock you. So it's saying professing, we need to know what that means. Declaring, openly declaring, acknowledging to have knowledge of God. We need to put that in there. Some people, I know some of you guys write real perfect, and I know you guys are going to be able to get that in there, but we need to put that in there. That need to be in there. Some people might want to do the shorthand, but openly declaring, acknowledging to have knowledge of God, but are fools. This need to be in there. The reason why we have to push through this, because we got to see this actually going to shock you. Why? Equals. Why? Is someone with lack of a godly wisdom. That's why. That's why. So someone who lacks godly wisdom. So it comes in the forms of two things. It comes in the forms of two things. We're going to look at those also. We're going to look at this is how they come. This is the forms they come in. They come in folly. We're going to also look at and they also come in foolishness. They come in folly and they come in foolishness. This is how the Bible determines this. It determines this because they openly declare and acknowledging they have knowledge of God, but are fools. Why? Someone who with lack, someone with I need to put with, someone with the lack of godly wisdom. Someone with the lack of godly wisdom. Or you could say someone with a lack, it actually is better, with a lack of godly wisdom. Why? Because they're folly and they're foolish. And we got to see examples of that. We need to see examples, and that's why we have this line for, because we're going to see examples of the exact thing on where people have sit there and they professing themselves to be wise. You see, clearly Paul is saying this. See, they clearly professing themselves to be wise. And they became fools. Why? So they professing one thing, but they became, so soon as they profess that they're wise based on godly wisdom, they already became fools because they have no knowledge of God. So fools is one who lives a life and sitting there saying there is no God. So the main thing on how you see them on their foolishness and their folly is one who lives the life through God's and God's will, or have no conscience of the will of God. Of the will of God. This is what they are. And let's see some examples of this. So as I said, we got to go through one, and I'm going to abbreviate these to where we can have room. We're going to look at Psalms 1:14-1. Let's go to Psalms 14:1. Let's see this, and we're going to see the example there. We're going to see the example there. So let's look at Psalms 14:1, because this is what it said. They was professing something and they was foolish. So we need to understand what's happening. It says, the fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. This is one. And you can see, as even when you see how it's blending in to where you see is leading up to his entire conversation, because you're going to see that in verse 23. You're going to see it automatically. Why? Because he's declaring something. He said they became fools, professing though to be wise. Let's look at another one. We're going to look at another one here to understand exactly, to get this right. We're going to look at Psalms 53 in verse 1. And what is this? These are precepts that you use, which you probably won't see in no other Bible, but these are things to where you can have, to where you can understand, to where you can clearly explain yourself to someone. Now, so they was professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Why? The fool has said in his heart, same thing, there is no God. Corrupt are they, and they've done abominable, now iniquity, sins. They have done abominable iniquity. They have done hateful sin. There is none that doeth good. There is none that doeth good. So why is it saying this? Why is it saying it? See, because they still talking about they're wise. But we have one more we need to make sure of. We're gonna go to the wisdom. We ain't gonna go there. Let's go here. Let's go to Proverbs. We're gonna go to Proverbs 1 and 7. This is actually a better one. This is actually a more better one. Why? Because it's going to tell us something. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So to have the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but they were professing to be wise. So, but the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. But fools despise wisdom and instructions. So this is what Paul is saying. See, it's telling you the identical thing where Paul pulled this from. That's why I want to use this verse. Because this is where this actually came. See, because Paul is saying, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Now you look over here, and the fear of the Lord is beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. See, they believe in their own hype. They believe in their own theology. They believe in their own theology, and they was professing themselves to be wise. And they became fools. Why? How are they wise? And they sitting there, they seeking their own theology in their own way of doing it. But the beginning of knowledge, you have to seek him in his word. He's not in somebody else's book. He's in his own book. He has his own personal book. So we have a problem where people have done this, and they lack the wisdom. They lack the wisdom. They lack godly wisdom. Why? Because they're fools on what they did. So we have to understand a couple of things in here to where we're going to do it, because now in verse 23, you're going to see how he actually breaks this all in there. It says, and change the glory of God, claims the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like a corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Really? We done this all day long. We have done this all day long. So we're going to look at some of this. We actually have to look at some of this, and we're going to see what happened. And you're going to see these verses going to explain themselves as we go. So he's saying uncorruptible. So we had took the incorruptible God and made him out of an image. We had taken this incorruptible God and we had created an image And now that's what we use as God. So people can sit there and even taking the image of a man, and many people call that God. So they taking this incorruptible God and they made it into an image. So we need to understand what this actually means. So we need to understand what that means. We need to understand what incorruptible God means. So they saying he is the glory of the incorruptible God. So we need to understand what that actually means. And it tells you clearly where we'll see it. And this is mean, and it means he cannot be into an image that can be corrupted. Cannot be corrupted and cannot be, oh, I got this, I don't know why I put it in there that way. Oh yeah, into an image that can be corrupted. Yeah, that's what I want to. So we need to see this in that he cannot be corrupted into an image that, an image that can be corrupted. Or we can look at it another way, cannot be projected into an image that can be corrupted. So this is what we want to do. So we got to look at some of these here. So we're going to look at some examples. We got to look at some examples here to where how he's talking about on what they did. Because they have taken the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like a corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. This is what we normally do. We always want to see. We want to see, I need to, you want to see God. And then if you don't see him, you erect something. This is what they've done. This is what they've done. Let's look at some examples. Let's look at a couple of things. So what we're going to do, I'm going to copy this. We're going to go to Exodus. We're going to go to Exodus. We're going to look at 32 and verse 4. Let's go to Exodus 32 and verse 4. We're going to look at this real close. And it says, he received them in their hand. He received them at their hands and fashioned it with a grieving tool after he had made it a molten calf. So this is what Aaron did. And Aaron told them to break off their earrings and all this stuff. And they gave it to him because they didn't know what happened to Moses. So they wanted to make themselves a god, a god. How? How are you going to make a god? But watch how they profess to be wise, but how they became fools. Just watch what happened. It says, and once they had made a molten calf, and they said, so let's see what they said. These be thy gods. These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Wait a minute. So let's reason this within our heads. Let's reason this within our heads. They broke off earrings and jewelry and all these things, and they done all this stuff, and then they gave them to Aaron. Aaron made a molten calf. So now the calf just appeared, and now they say, these be the gods that brought them up out of Israel. The calf wasn't even there. Aaron just made it. So that don't even make sense. So we can see the silliness that's in there. So it's saying they changed the glory of an incorruptible God And since they didn't see Moses for a while, what we do, we erect one. We erect what we want to see as a god. So these calves, they sitting there saying, those guys brought them up out of there and they just made it. Because all you have to do is go one verse up and they tell you, and all the people break off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought unto them unto Aaron. So how is that making sense? How is that making sense? Let's look at even verse 32 and verse 1 to show you the silliness on what Paul is talking about. It says, and when the people saw that Moses delayed, he delayed to come down out of the mount of the people gathering themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, what did they say? Up, make us gods. And you want to tell me Israel got a bunch of common sense? So we know we got a lot of unwise people within Israel. You see right there. A lot of us didn't have sense back then, and a lot of us don't have sense today. Make us God, which shall we go before us? For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt. Now, it gets so silly because you can see the silliness. Okay. So as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we want not what is become of him. Now, this is the silliness. This shows you the silliness and why sometimes it's actually funny because it's actually a crack up. But we have to look at this as a whole. Okay, they're saying Moses brought them up out of the land of Egypt. Keep that in mind. Now, you go down to verse 4, and what do they say? By these be the gods, O Israel, which brought us out of the land of Egypt. Didn't they just say Moses did it and with his God? And now they sitting there talking about down, they just erected a calf and say that it was those guys. Moses ain't never even seen it. So you can see the silliness. So that's why I said, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. That's why it blends right to what's going on. It blends itself and it shows you the silliness on what we do. This is why it's so important to where we sit there and we study, but then we don't get tied up to where we want to get caught up on all this just outside, just nonsense stuff. But we have some more we have to put in here. But I just want to just show you that silliness there to where you can see it. And some of you guys probably laughing your hearts out on that one yourself. But actually it's actually pretty funny. So we're going to look at Deuteronomy 16:19, 4:16 and through 19. We're going to see some more. We're going to look at some more. It says, lest ye corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female. So now he's telling you right now, lest we corrupt ourselves and we make a similitude of any figure, Keep that in mind. The likeness of a male or female. So we cannot make even an image of any person, male or female, and make it as a similitude to where we're going to try to make it out of a god. Are you with me? This is all he's talking about. This is all he's talking about. But watch this. He gets even more. The likeness of any beast that is on the earth. Now, didn't they just do that calf? They just made a calf. The likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air. Verse 18, the likeness of anything that creepeth upon the ground. The likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. Verse 19, and at least thou lift up thy eyes unto heaven, and when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, shouldst thou be driven into worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God have divided unto all nations under the whole heaven. Tell me we don't do this. So many of us do this, it's unreal. We do this without even thinking. Why do I say that? Because as he's sitting there telling you what we're doing, we have changed the glory of an incorruptible God and made like a corruptible man. Meaning what? We use this male images, we'll use cross, we'll use fish, we'll use rainbows, they use stars, you name it, they use it. And they'll call it God. They'll sit there, this is an image of God. Corruptible and trying to make an image of something that's incorruptible. Incorruptible mean what? It's going to perish. It's going to perish. Why? Because we need to know what corrupted actually means. We need to know what this means. We need to know what that means. So we're gonna put down what this means. Let's put down what that means. And actually, I'm gonna do a little quick because I actually wrote myself a note on that one. And I do apologize because it's all capped out. But it's something that can decay or is subject to destruction. And with our bodies, with which is flesh. That's corruptible, according to Scripture. That is corruptible according to Scripture. So if we're dealing with something that's corruptible, or it can decay or subject to destruction, and so the same that you'll look at a body, our personal bodies, what? Our body's going to decay. Our body's going to lose the shape, form, fashion, and everything that it had. It shows whereas as it grows up, it's strong, it's lean. All of a sudden, after it's been on the earth for a while, gravity changes, pulls, tugs, oldness started happening, hair color changes, facial expressions moves around, hair, some come to hair loss, some weight changes. All these things start changing. Why? Because it's slowly decaying. It's slowly decaying. So we need to understand as we go through here is what this is saying. And this is what they did. They changed the glory of the incorruptible God, and he gets deeper into this. Because this is so serious, it's unreal. In this, I'm talking about he's honing in on this, and he will not, and Paul is like not even coming off of it. But people will sit there and they'll sit there and glorify some of these verses, but not understanding how Paul is talking to Israelites that is in Rome and showing what they're doing in the seriousness that Paul is taking on this. So before I move forward, I just want to make sure, because we got to push through. We got some other verses we got to push through. So what I want to find out real quick, do we have any questions? Do everybody understand what's happening so far before I move forward? So anyone that's on the YouTube side, you can post it up. If anybody inside the Zoom, you can put your hand up, or you can post a question in the question and answer. I can answer it there. But I'm looking, if we don't have no questions, then we can move forward. But if we have a question, we can stop. But I just want to make sure. I see Sister Brenda, I appreciate the way that she does it, because she actually speaks when she understands. She actually lets me know, hey, I'm good. I appreciate that, because she's letting me know exactly where she's standing. So I kind of almost been using her actually as the forefront on that side. But that's what I want people, when I understand, I can move forward. So right now, I know back in the back area, all they have to do is put their hand up, and I do have a question in the back area. And we do have one, and Sister Watson, she's saying that she is good. So we're going to take that as good. And I see on the other side, we see that is good so far. So what we're going to do, we're going to move forward. We're going to push forward, and we're going to start picking it up because I don't see anything. Everybody understood. So let's push this forward. Let's keep moving forward and find out what's going on here. So what we're going to do, let me get this going. And what we got to do, we got to look at this. And now we looking at what's going on, and we're going to push down into verse 24. We got to push down into verse 24. And you're going to see how it get worse and worse as Paul talking. But people sit there and think that Paul was talking very humbly and real cool about everything. And Paul just get worse and worse as he went. Now watch this. It says, wherefore, God also gave them up to uncleanness. He gave them up to uncleanness. We're going to start finding out what some of this actually what he's talking about. Though through the lust of their own hearts to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. This is Paul. This is Paul. And this is going to actually get even more because Paul's going to talk even deeper about this even in the next verse. So uncleanness. Uncleanness. We need to find out what that uncleanness is. So if we know what uncleanness is, we can actually figure out what things is going on. Uncleanness. See, most people will give us a lot of different things in saying what uncleanness is, but uncleanness has a very point blank. What is unclean? It has a very point blank issue in what is not. And it's just what is in holy. And then what you can do, holy, what is not holy, unclean. Or you can say unholy. So you can even use it that way. So what is unholy? Well, let me do it this way. What is unholy equals still unclean. So uncleanness in anything that is separated from God is unholy. That's what you have to put in your thought pattern. Whatever is separated from God is unholy. So how can we find this out? So what we got to do, whatever is unclean is also corruptible. Are you with me? So whatever is unclean is also corruptible. So let's look at some verses here to where we can look at this all together. And then we got to blend all of this through the lust of their own hearts. We got to blend this in with some other parts. We got to blend this in with some other parts because he talks about this over here. And this is where we're going to pull all our meat at. So before we get there, we're gonna satisfy it here. So we want to know first what uncleanness is. We want to know what uncleanness is. So it's what's holy and what is unholy. So it's separating the two. So we need to look at Leviticus. We're going to look at 10 and 11 to find out what's going on. Because then he's going to get real serious with what's going on. So it says, and to make a difference between holy and unholy. That's uncleanness. And he gonna do the similitude in between unclean and clean. He's giving you the similitude of what he's talking about. So when people want to sit there and understand what's going on, you want to make sure you do right here, and you want to highlight that right there. The same as you want to do right here. Corruptible and incorruptible. So here we're looking at uncleanness. We're looking at uncleanness. Why? Because we have to make a separation, a difference. We have to put this difference there on what is holy and what is unholy. So whatever is holy is clean. Whatever is unholy is unclean. It's not no middle ground. So then we're going to look at verse 11. In that ye may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord has spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. So it goes right back to Moses. It goes right back to Moses. So now, not only we showing them what's clean and what's unclean unto our children, we also have to teach our children all the statutes, as you see it in saying in there, right in verse 11, all the statutes, all of them, which the Lord has spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. We have to teach them all. We have to teach every one of them. But they didn't do this because through their uncleanness, whereas God had gave them up, because he gave them up for that reason. Why? To uncleanness. They was unholy. So now we know what is holy and what was not unholy. So he gave them up because they wasn't being holy. They wasn't doing what was right. And through their lust of their own hearts, which we're going to start finding out what some of this is. Which we're going to truly find out what some of this is. And it's not good whatsoever. So this is why we have to piece this. We're going to go down, then we're going to come back. Because this is not good. Because if we have so much uncleanness, and people sitting there, how they talk about, well, God hates the sin, but loves the sinner. How can you sit there and say that? And they love to go to Paul. How can they say that? And you see, even right here, wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness. But they say he loves the sinner. He gave them up. This is the problem on why people say things and they want to sit there and they pump doctrines that you don't see. If you don't see it, you don't believe it. But it's going to get more serious as we move forward. Because as I said, we're getting ready to get dead serious now, because this is where we do not want it to be. Why? Who changed the truth of God into a lie. I told you this was going to be the problem. They changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the creator, who blessed forever. Amen. Now, you don't think we have a problem here? So they changed the truth of God. How is that? How, okay, so when we want to look at this, we have to rationalize this within our heads. How did they change the truth of God into a lie? They changed the truth of God into a lie. But this whole verse actually explains itself. And we're going to look at how we do that. So we got to look at sometime the verse, sometimes we have to break it down on where it says, and he changed the truth of God into a lie. Sometimes you've seen how I do it. Sometimes I'll stop it right there and we tear it down. But he further explains the way the entire verse explains itself, because now he changed the truth of God into a lie. So if we change the truth of God, why? How? Through worship. That's all he was saying. So we changed the truth of God and worship and serve the creature more than the creator. That's all it's saying. That's all it's saying. And what a lot of you guys are going to find out as you see me and I do this and see how people see how I can remove things, but just get just the meat on what I need. A lot of you guys are going to start picking that up, and you actually going to start being able to do this also. So don't never sit there and think, oh, he's just good at what he does. No, you'll start doing the same thing. So that part don't worry about. But that's all this was saying. Who changed the truth of God and worshiped and served the creature more than the creator. That's all this is ever saying. Why? Because we need to see how he did that. We're gonna look at this, the truth of God, and the truth of God and worship. So how do we worship him? You already know this. These are things that we already should know on how we worship him. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna look at John 4, 23 and 24. It's clear as day. It's clear as day. And it tells you right there, it says, but the hour cometh now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. And they changed that into a lie. They changed that into a creature. They changed that into these other things. So now what we're doing, we worship in fish. We worship in images. We worship in things that's not even spoken about. This is what Paul is saying. What we're doing, we looking at and we tearing down the mind of Paul. We have to see how Paul put this together. This is what we're doing. So this is why, and I guarantee you, a lot of you guys have sat there and went through some of these scriptures, and I guarantee you, I know you learned quite a bit, but when you start tearing down and you look at the mind of Paul and seeing how Paul is pulling all this together, it gives you to where Paul is using the entire Bible to get you to understand. Because we had taken the truth of God and worship everything. Can no one tell you that they have been in a church and you didn't see a cross, you didn't see an image of a man, you didn't see images around you of angels with wings on? Just totally untrue. Worshiping images of people. This is why it's so important to understand what we had changed into a lie. So we have to worship him according to his commandments. However, we worship the image, an image. So what are these images? And we got to see. Yeah, I know. I figured it, yeah. Oh, I put 2 P's. Worshiping images. How? How? We got to clear the statement because he's telling you we worshiped and served a creature more than the creator. We worship a creature more than the creator. So we have to look at where this is coming from. We're going to look at Wisdom of Solomon 14, verse 11. Let's go over there and let's look at this. Let's clear the statement. It says, therefore, even upon the idols of the Gentiles, which he already told us what not to be doing with them, shall there be a visitation. Now the Most High, he's going to do a visitation because the creature, in the creature of God, they are become abominable. Why? Because he's talking about you. He's talking about you. Because in the creature of God, you are become abominable. Why? In a stumbling block of the souls of men, and a snare to the feet of the unwise. Clear in the statement. Clear in the statement. Now, what we need to do here, watch this. Drop down to verse 22. Drop down to verse 22. It says, moreover, this was not enough for them. They erred in the knowledge. Same thing Paul been talking about. Same thing he's been talking about. They erred in the knowledge of God, whereas they lived in great ignorance. Those so great plagues, they called their peace. These are things that we did. Why? Then we got to come back to verse 12. Why? Because it makes it clear. It says, for the devising of what? Idols was the beginning of what? Spiritual fornication. How did he say we got to worship him? In spirit and in truth. It tells you right up here, and it's so clear right up here. Actually, I'm gonna put this. That's how you got to worship him, in spirit and in truth. And what is it saying right here? For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication, and the invention of them, the corruption of life. Didn't we just have all this problem up there? Paul is never changing this statement. Paul has never changed the statement. We're using corruptible things to do what we need to be, what we shouldn't have been doing. Corruptible things. So how is this? Told you we got to go back up. Didn't I say we got to go back up? I told you we're going to have to go back up to clear some things. Corruptible. So what we want to do, actually, we already have it there. So we need to make sure, actually, we'll just do it this way. Corruptible. How can we get this? Because I told you we had to go back, and blend that down to down below. So it's telling you corruptible man. Wisdom of Solomon. 14 and 15. 14 and 15. And it says, for a father afflicted with an untimely mourning, when he had made an image of his child, soon taken away. So his son died. Now honored him as a god, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremony and sacrifices. Ceremonies and sacrifices. Corruptible man. And trying to do it to the glory of an incorruptible God. A corruptible man. These are things we have to understand, where Paul is using this, not with the New Testament, but he was walking around with the Old and the Apocrypha, but we have to understand where Paul is coming from. This is what they do. Not only what they do, we had joined into this. So if we understand when we go through this, a lot of these things like this, we have to see where he's coming from and what he's talking about, because if we're worshiping corruptible men as gods, he goes on more. Let's drop down to verse 20. It says, and so the multitude, allured by the grace of the work, took him now for a god which was little before, was but honored as a man. And he's telling you right here, made like a corruptible man. From a father that was afflicted with an untimely, so his child died early. And now we worshiping him as a god. Who was nothing more than a man. This is the problem we literally have today, because we continually do it. We continually do this and have no problem doing it. Worshiping the creature more than the creator. And actually, you put the same thing right here. You put and you can put 14 and 20. This is literally what we're doing. We're doing this so much today, it's unreal. You can see people tattooing themselves all over their bodies and doing their thing. And as I told you, remember what he said up here? I told you, we got to come back to this. He gave them up. He gave them up. So if he gave them up, we're going to see he talks about this again. Just like I said, Paul talks about this, and Paul, he kind of repeats himself, which most people don't even know he does this. Most people don't even know Paul kind of repeats himself. So you see this in verse 26. It says, for this cause, God gave them up unto vile affections. Look up here. Wherefore God also gave them up unto uncleanness. Most people don't even know Paul double talks like this. He'll say one thing in one place, but then a couple of verses later, he's going to say the identical thing, and he's going to change the main point of the focus. So he's telling you right now, he gave them up for vile affections. So what we got to understand is this. God gave them up. We're going to use that as the premise. So we're going to tell you what, I want to change this. We're going to change that as the premise. But then what I want to do, vile affections. We got to understand what that means. We want to understand exactly what that means, because this is what we got to hone in on. This is what we have to hone in on. So what I want to find out right now is, what do anybody have an idea on what vile affections mean? Do anybody know what that means? Because I do know people, if you want to be straight about it and see it, mainly if you're using concordances and stuff like that, pretty much I'm going to end up figuring it out anyway. However, if people know what it means according to scripture, I'm asking you to put it in. If you just know what it means, just say what it means, and you put it in here, or in back here in the Zoom, you can post it also there. What you think vile affections mean? What do that mean? Because we got to dig through this. We're gonna dig through it and find out what that actually means. So right now I'm waiting on the Zoom, and I'm also keeping my eye on the YouTube live chat to see what anybody have there to see what it could, or what do anybody have what it could mean. This is what I'm checking for. So far I don't have anybody posting anything, but we want to, and we have one is, I think it's the love of other gods. Okay, we have one, unnatural lust. Kemet, unclean. Okay, so I see unclean. Yeah, we have is uncleanness. We know that, but I want to know what. Okay, Brenda, I appreciate it. I always appreciate when you do that. Unnatural lust. If Kemet can actually be a little bit more direct, because that's kind of an open-end answer to where it can go any direction. So, because that's an unnatural lust, and that can run anywhere. However, I have one answer. We're looking in there, and believing in something that is not real. We actually is way deeper than that, but good shot at it. Good shot at it. Appreciate it. Homosexuality, part of it. So part of it, you got part of it. So in you're in a good direction. I can tell you that you're in a good direction of it. So I do appreciate that. And do we have anyone else? I got another one. Do this one. Filthy. Yeah, but I need something more direct. Desires of the heart. Okay, now I won't tell you what, we got some sharp cookies out here. Okay, now they starting to come in. Okay, desiring of the heart, lusting for strange flesh, whatever pleases their flesh, boy, orgy. Now I'm gonna tell you, Terry Clark, Brother Simpson, Brenda, Aaron Pryor, Ruddick Shaw. Y'all some bad folks. I give y'all credit. They honing it. I'm talking about you. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mac enough. Yeah, you guys honing in on it. You're honing in on it. And then we have one brother, he put in Galatians. We're gonna look at Galatians real quick, and then we're gonna go to it. And we're gonna put that in. Let's go to Galatians, and we're gonna look at 5:19. And even though we can know what it is, but anytime somebody give you a verse, always look at it, because you don't want to quote them off yourself. It says, works of the flesh are made known or manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness. Yeah, all that's good. So you pinpoint right where to go. And what we're trying to do is find out how it actually works. That's what we're looking at. So yeah, good. That's a good place. And that's where you'll run people. But what you're going to do, now you're going to be able to expand on it, because he's using that exact word to expand on it. And most people don't know what expanding on it is. But literally, I'm talking about they pinpointed it. I don't know if they was kind of embarrassed to say it, and now they just going it, and you guys start shooting at it. So let's find out, even though they all are right. Every one of them is right. Even that verse that he gave was right. We have as king, we're going to look at this last one, and he's using Isaiah. And I do, let's go to Isaiah, and he's using Isaiah 32. We're going to go to 32, and we're going to look at verse 6. And it says, a vile person will speak, well, in the heart. So you pinpoint in one part. Yeah, you pinpoint in one part. So you're just doing one part. So because you're using, this is one thing what we want to do. Always remember this. As you're learning the mind of Paul, and inadvertently, a lot of what you guys are going to be learning is actually learning how to precept, and you actually don't know you actually learn how to precept. Technically, what's going on? It's just another way that we do it. that you actually end up understanding, and through the understanding, you'll start being able to precept. However, just because every time you see vile doesn't mean that you're going to go run to a place where it got vile there. It don't mean that. But what he's saying is, Paul is saying actually what it actually means. That's why they was able to, they started pinpointing it. Now what brother Lynn did, he went to a place and he just named what they was, which is correct. But what we were trying to find out, what do people actually know? What is that actual statement? And I'm talking about when they talking about people with animals, bestiality, all that orgy, I'm talking about they pinpointed it. So that's so what happened is, if you use this verse and you're going to teach on, say, Romans 1:26, it says, for this cause God gave them up to vile affections. Now what happened is, you see this colon there, which is going to give you more clarification of what's happening. It says, for even their women did change the natural use of their the natural use unto that which is against nature. So that's what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about. So what is against nature? Bestiality, completely against nature. Homosexuality, completely against nature. Orgies, completely against natures. Hated of God. Forbidden, yeah. It's kind of an open end, but it's direct. All that is forbidden. All of it's just basically unholy. It's technically what's going on. So that's beautiful. We have Homer also hitting Romans. He hit Romans 1:27, and we're going to look at that one real quick, which is actually tied to the same thing, which kind of almost cheating, but in a way, but that's okay, because we're all trying to get the understanding on what's going. Likewise, men leaving the natural use. Yeah. So natural use of the woman and burned into their lust. So yeah, you're honing in on it. So I see he's doing, I don't know if he got he trying to be real respectful. So he just using verses, but he pinpointing the good verses. But I don't know if he want to speak those words. I don't know, but good verses, but don't want to speak the words. So what we want to do is with that. So let's find out, because all those are part of it. So what I was saying, so if you're going to teach somebody, or you guys have a Bible study, and you teaching on this here, and you're going to find out what these vile affections are, and this is where you'll be able to pinpoint this. So let's look at that. So let's look at this, and we're going to get this. And you have to, when you start teaching these and doing this, or going through teachings and using precepts as such, we want to make sure that you're able to expand on it, but never leaving the Bible. Never leaving the Bible. So it's telling you clearly that God gave them up for vile affections. So we need to understand what vile affections actually mean. We got to understand what vile affections actually mean. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this one. We want to know what vile mean, and what we're going to do. And seeing the same thing is, I'm going to copy this, because if not, I know I'm going to be taking all day, and the women going to sit there and be twirling their fingers, sitting there like, boy, he just takes so long. But that means dispensable or physically repulsive, disgustingly acts. Everything what they said. Everything what they said. Everything what they were saying. So it can be repulsive, and we can see it in many as done other ways. And you can see repulsive. That's the same thing. Like you can see, like even animals, which was counted, and it could be reputed as a vile or in your sight based on what you see. Based on what you see. Same thing, you'll see people, or how God will see you, he will see you vile. So we need to explain that on what the acts are, or how are you seeing? Okay, so we have to find out what those are. So the same thing as those acts, because it tells you clearly what those are. So we're going to use one, and we're going to see how you are seeing. And we're going to look at that. We're going to look at Job 18 and verse 3. So we're going to go to Job 18 and verse 3. And it says, wherefore we are counted as beasts and reputed vile in your sight. So we know that there. We are counted as beasts. So we know that. So since we know that, we have to understand what this is saying. So we need to understand what the other one means, and we're going to get this clarification. Afflictions. Now this one here is the one that can be tricky, and but don't worry, we're going to work all this out. Do not worry about that, because this will be worked out. And this can have various shades of meaning. The main part, it means feeling or emotions. Why? Because this is what they were talking about. So those are affections. So why? Because they can be fooling you in different ways. It's the main part, and it has many different meanings. It can be feelings or emotions. Actually, let me type this in there 1 second. Because I can put it over here and then copy it over there. It's easier. Feeling. I don't know why I did it and do it the other way. Feelings or emotions. Why? We need to see an example of it. We need to see an example of it. So how are we going to see this example? I'm going to show you. Here go your example of this here. We're going to go to Colossians 3 and 5. And watch what you see Brother Lynn did. You're going to see some of the same picture on what happened. We're going to go to Colossians chapter 3 and verse 5. Chapter 3 and verse 5. And watch, this is actually in there on what everybody was saying, but most people overlook it. And we're going to see this. And literally it's in here. So I just want to get everybody to go to Colossians chapter 3, verse 5. And it actually is in here. What everybody was putting in here is actually in here. And it's going to shock a lot of people. It says, mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, which some people say, inordinate affections, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Now, did anybody see anything that made sense on what people were talking about on what was happening? So besides me switching over, I want you guys to think on that when you look at Colossians 3 and 5, and you're going to find out where bestiality, orgies, and that lusting of the flesh, homosexuality, where do you see that in verse 5 on Colossians chapter 3? Because I'm telling you, it's right there. It's looking dead at you. It's looking right at you. So I want you to look within there and just think about it, because I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to show you which one that you focus in on. So you look, if you focused in on concupiscence, that's the one you look for. Why? It's having a lustful, strong desire. The lustful, strong desire that are disorderly, immoral, and unclean. That's what Paul was doing. So, and all that has what all in there? All that has everything which you sitting there where they talking about bestiality and all that is right there in that statement. Is having a strong lustful desire that is disorderly and immoral. Just on that word alone. And most people don't even know Paul is actually saying that. Most people just kind of look over it. I was going to look at another Bible just to see what they probably had there, because I'm pretty sure they took it out. But I can almost guarantee they took that out. However, that's what that actually means, according to Scripture. Your affections should be a certain way, but they set this so strongly. He has that in there to where they have just misused the use of their bodies. Where you have animals going into people and people going into animals. Now we're going to see some other positive in some things and what your affections should be. See, this is affections, and actually I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just do negative. Let me do it that way. Negative. And then we're gonna do this. And then we're gonna do this. Positive. So we want to see it in the same way. In the same thing, it's the same thing as here. Same thing. So what are some of the positives? Some of the positive we're gonna see, we're gonna go to 1 Chronicles. (29) in verse 3. 29 of verse 3. Let's go there and we're going to read that, and we're going to see what your affections should be. It says, moreover, because I have set my affections, that's what it should be, to the house of my God. I have my own proper good of gold and silver, which I have given to the house of my God, over above all that I have prepared for the holy house. That's where your affections should be. That's where it should be. But you see how you put vile there. These disgusting and just immoral acts. That's how you're looking at it. Let's look at one more right there. We're going to look at the positive side of it, to where you can at least understand. So you still need to put this in there to where you'll know, because some people say, well, what about this? So, and I'm going to show you how you're going to know the difference. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 6, verse 11. We're going to look at that one real quick. It says, wherefore, set your affections upon my word, desire them. So that's where your desires should be. And ye shall be instructed. So the difference here is where we're looking at people talking about vile acts, and you sit there and say, no, see, vile acts is talking about immoral. Actually, I see a mistake here. I see a mistake there. Immoral. So we want to look at that. Immoral. And once they put vile there, we know Paul is speaking immoral, despicable, physical, repulsive, disgusting acts. That's all Paul is saying. So afflictions can either be negative or they can be positive. But we know he's using the negative because he's using vile afflictions. But when you see afflictions, mainly a lot of times by itself, you'll see it's going to do it. It's going to let itself know in a positive, meaning what? Feeling or emotions, which actually comes with an action. Why? How do they come with an action? let's see, let's check out one other thing here. We're going to get something understanding here. Used. Used. You don't let nothing go by you. Nothing should go by you. Use is the act or to practice or employing something. That's why he says that. Change the natural use. Change the natural act or practice of employing what? Your body. So let me write this out 1 second, and then I can post it there. So what we want to do, we want to put this here, and you'll see that there. So you'll see used. Use. This is an act or practice or employing something. That's what that is. That's what that is. So we want to highlight that also. But we actually gonna do one more. We want to do one more before we finish up. I want you to know what natural means. We want to know what natural means. So let's do this. I'm gonna put that part right there. We want to know what natural means. Why? Because we need to know what these words mean to where you can know how something goes. Because natural is actually an important word. It's a real important word. Let me write this. It's a law of moral divine nature or state. That's what it is. Actually, or state. Why? And I'm gonna tell you why it's so important, because the Hebrew language has no word for the word natural, or even an equivalent that you can even see in the Greek or Aramaic language. There's nothing in there that would tell you about natural. So even though they say natural, but the terminology and the understanding of it, they actually do not give you an equivalent word to actually project out what it actually means. So if you know the Hebrew and the writings of it, then you can actually see what it's actually saying. But all in all, I'm just telling you pretty much what it just says. That's all I'm really doing. So the Hebrew word is technically not an English word actually developed for it, is what I'm saying. So for natural in the Hebrew, it's no English word that was developed for it to where we can use it to help you out. Technically what it's saying. So the best way to describe that is the law of moral. So that's why I said the law of moral, meaning what? The best way to explain that is what is the body's natural causes, the use and cause for, and the natural things of an animal. So that's why I put that there, because there's no English word to actually give you the natural sense of what that word can actually be explained. So it's the law of moral. It's divine in natural or state. So it's the same as you take, people might take an animal, and with the animal, they'll do unmoral things with it. So what they do, they break the law of moral. What is moral? They break it. That's why I put that there. That's the best way to explain that. But if anyone ever tell you, or they actually have this, that word to where it tells you, even in this Bible here, where you see right here, and they have this word, and this word is saying natural in a Hebrew Bible, and it says natural, and they sit there and they read it and it says natural, then that's not actually a true Bible. Or if it's even in Greek. Why? Because it has, this natural has no translation to the English language. None. None. It's only in Hebrew, but it's give you the understanding on what it's saying. And the best way to explain that is the law of moral. That's the best way to explain that. So what we're going to do, we're going to break that off there, and then we're going to pick this up on Sunday. And then I believe next week we're going to start the weekly Israelite Bible study, which is actually going to be a whole lot. And I do want to speak to you guys about it because I know a lot of you guys actually have the book. But I'm asking you, once you get the questions based on the law, please do not go back and try to look at the answers and then answer it according to the answers already given. That's actually in the book, because then technically you didn't learn anything. So if you're doing that, you're not learning nothing. So, so that's what we ask. So with that, we have this part, and we're actually going to be most likely finishing out chapter 1 and actually going in. Yep, we're going to be going into. Let me see. I want to look. Yeah, we will be most likely. We will Sunday. I will pretty much make sure we're going to go into chapter 2 and understand it. So with that, before I do go out, I want to ask, do anybody have any questions technically on what we have covered so far? So if you have any questions, this is the best time to post them right now, and make sure you guys have marked it up. If not, go back and actually input this, and many people can actually transfer a lot of those precepts back right to your Bible, or you're going to be using them right there in the in your um, in your book of the Romans. And you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. And I want to just check. Do we have anyone with any questions? Anyone with any questions? Oh, wait a minute. I do have one that's in the chat. And okay, no, they're saying they're just good. So far we are good. So since we are good, and same thing like I said, because I sit there and I see the note they got here. So again, that um they have actually linked up with Teespring. So Teespring has kind of took over their t-shirts and their clothing and stuff to where they actually tie it right here to this channel. So same thing, if you want some of the clothing, they have it there to where you can see it right below there, and you can actually purchase it. And they got Bible verses that I know they're doing a lot of different stuff. So if you see things you like, you can get either from Precept Mastery, and now you can get a lot of that stuff from King James Bible University. So just depending on what you like, and you can get it there, and you can go from it from there. And now back with this here, make sure if you don't have the book, make sure you get the book. You can catch up by going through it. And what we're trying to see is to where we can tie everything to where you can actually go through it in a sequence, to where you can actually, people who actually just getting their books, they can actually go through there, and you can actually start, if you get the book next week for the book of Romans, you can actually go through and you can actually catch up. Technically what that's doing. Because once you understand Paul, I'm gonna tell you, once we get into some of the other ones, your understanding really going to jump tremendously. However, with the weekly Israelite study, that one's going to change your outlook on the law completely, because literally, that's literally what's going to hone in on. So with that, I don't see any questions, and it is no problem. The patience, I do not have a problem. Something I do love to do is to teach and make sure, because same thing, like I said, I want to make sure you understand what you need to know, so you won't have no problems. So if you get there and you just wrong, you can't come back and look at me. You knew what the truth was. So with that, I appreciate everybody that came. I appreciate all the questions that you guys gave. And if anybody need any help as far as going back looking at it, go back. I'm making sure they're all named by number, so you can see, Romans 1, Romans 2. I was looking at probably putting the verses in there, but most people can scan through it. But right now I just got, Romans 1, Romans 2, Romans 3, to where you can go through and you can actually pull those up to go through those lessons. So with that, hopefully that give a lot of people a lot of understanding to hope go through there. But as we continually move forward, we're going to go deeper in there. But then also what you're seeing in here, you see not too deep of what word affiliations are, but I'm actually just showing you what the words actually mean according to scripture. But the precepts is in there to where you can have it to where you can get the clarity on many times where Paul is actually pulling his information from. So with that, hopefully that everybody got some good understanding. And I want to appreciate, and if you guys on this Sunday, we'll be picking this back up. We're going to be going through it. And what we're going to most likely be doing, which I think I will be making sure, we're going to push through this. We got to go through about 5 or 6 verses to make sure that we're going to stay on target. So with that, be prepared to put in work on this coming Sunday. So until then, I bid everybody a shalom into this Sabbath. Shalom.